Today's question is, should Christians celebrate Halloween? Now, I myself am a Christian. Specifically, I am a Catholic, and I celebrate Halloween in terms of going to parties, hosting parties, trick-or-treating, giving out candy. I don't think I am participating in devil worship. I don't think it has anything to do with being satanic. I think it's a time where people need to do something fun and dress up just so they can get out of their regular lives and the society they live in. I do know that Halloween has some Celtic, Celtic or pagan origins. However, at this time in the year 2024, it's mostly a marketing thing. It's mostly an economic thing. And I just think people just need to spend money and have fun when it starts getting colder with the fall season. However, this Christian, Jim Stanley, is going to explain why Halloween should not be celebrated if you're a Christian. He's going to do it in an hour and 20 minutes, but I'm going to summarize this video in 10 minutes. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content.
And hit something that's extremely relevant, very controversial within Christianity today. I put a post on Facebook this afternoon, or a post was put on Facebook this afternoon about me doing this teaching tonight, and scores of comments and dialogue and debate are all over the place. Christians saying, I think there's nothing wrong with keeping Halloween. Other ones saying, no, we should. So I took the liberty upon myself to go back in history, 100 year by 100 year, millennium by millennium, all the way back thousands of years to find out where these traditions came from, to find out that is this statement true? Did anyone at any time outside of modern history ever dress up to mock demons? We're going to discover that. And then lastly, I highlighted this one quote. It was the point of All Hallows Eve was to show that Jesus rose from the dead, and the point was to show that he had victory over death. Let's discover if All Hallows Eve, which eventually evolved into the term Halloween, if that really was an accurate statement. Did it really start out, and is the point and purpose of All Hallows Eve to glorify life? Let's dig in. First of all, the history of Halloween starts with a holiday, an ancient Celtic holiday. It's not pronounced Samhain. It's pronounced Samhain, okay? So Samhain is an ancient Celtic holiday that is thousands of years old. And this is where virtually all scholars in academia find their way back to when they want to do historical traces of Halloween. This is actually where you go to. All Saints' Day, or All Hallows Eve, is much later on the timeline, as we're going to discover.
Okay, so I don't think just because the celebration started before the Christianity that this means this is something that is satanic.
So I want to go to Encyclopedia Britannica. I trust Encyclopedia Britannica on most things. They do a pretty good job at doing historical records. So let's find out from them a little bit about this Halloween day. In ancient Britain and Ireland, the Celtic festival of Samhain Eve was observed on October 31st, at the end of summer. It was an occasion for one of the ancient fire festivals when huge bonfires were set on hilltops to frighten away evil spirits. The souls of the dead were thought to revisit their homes on this day, and the autumn festival acquired sinister significance with ghosts, witches, hobgoblins, black cats, fairies, and demons of all kinds said to be roaming about. In addition, Halloween was thought to be the most favorable time for divinations concerning marriage, luck, health, and death.
See, right here to this Britannica encyclopedia, it doesn't say that it worships the devil. In fact, it says that they burn an ancient fire. It's an ancient festival, which is a huge bonfire to frighten away evil spirits. So it's to frighten away evil spirits, not to bring evil spirits into you. And that's what I think, because that's what I'm getting from this.
So right away, if I did not tell you this was the festival of Samhain, you would automatically be thinking Halloween, because this describes it to a T, and we haven't even gotten started yet. Ladies and gentlemen.
Right, but the purpose is to fight away evil spirits, not to bring evil spirits into you.
Continue. Samhain, also spelled this way, one of the most important and sinister calendar festivals of the Celtic year. At Samhain, held on November 1st, so it's October 31st to November 1st, the world of the gods was believed to be made visible to mankind. And the gods played many tricks on their mortal worshipers. It was a time fraught with danger, charged with fear, and full of supernatural episodes. Sacrifices and propitiations of every kind were thought to be vital, for without them, the Celts believed they would not prevail over the perils of the season or counteract the activities of the deities. Samhain was an important precursor to Halloween.
Okay, so this sounds more scary here. You know, it's saying that that the humans would actually sacrifice other people, or at least do sacrifices, because the gods would play games on them, because that was when the gods could see humans more visibly, or something like that. Okay, so I'll give that to you. That sounds a little bit more scary. That sounds a little bit more satanic. So if that's the origin of Halloween, then I guess, yes, the origin is something that is bringing evil spirits upon you in a way. But at the end of the day, maybe not, because we don't even understand the Celtic religion. We have 2 paragraphs so far of the Celtic religion. We don't know like if the gods were already evil gods, you know, like there was maybe no good god or bad god. It was just a neutral god, and some of them like to play games. The idea of like being satanic when it's a religion that was before Christianity, you don't understand like the purpose of that. You can't really correlate both of them. And it's like the Greeks and the Romans, their versions of demons are not what we as Christians think as demons. Like not all demons were evil. It was just like a spirit. And does that make sense? Something that can come in. It doesn't mean that it was like evil. So it's something very careful to you have to be able to distinguish this between something being satanic and just having to do with spirits in a religion prior to Christianity.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we see right off the bat that the actual origin of Halloween had nothing to do with All Hallows Eve, that we're going to see evolved from the Catholic Church, that its roots go all the way back into a pagan cultic festival called Samhain, where they believed that the curtain or the veil between earth and the second dimension of the demons, of the demonic realm, or the place of the dead, was thinned. And at that place on October 31st and November 1st, the veil was thinned, and that allowed spirits of the dead to transfer from the place in the abode of the dead into the place of the living.
See, okay, here's the thing that I think is, I disagree with him strongly. He's saying that because the dead spirits will be able to come in, it's also opening up to demonic spirits. It was the demonic realm, or like hell. But even in Christianity, the dead aren't necessarily in hell. A lot of people who are dead are in heaven. A lot of people who are dead are in purgatory. A lot of people who are dead are in hell. So it doesn't mean just because you're talking to or being visible by humans that are already dead, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily from hell. They could be from heaven or purgatory.
And because of that, there were many supernatural things that happened during those time periods, and so a lot of cultural traditions developed to counter what they called, some of them, the gods. Okay? Today, even in Satanism, the high holy day, guess when it is? October 31st.
Yeah, that's Halloween.
Where do you think they get that from?
That's true. That's true. The people who do worship the devil do have their more important day on Halloween, and there are various cults that do practices that I cannot say on YouTube, even though like you should be able to free speech, but if I say it, they're going to censor me. Basically, yes, multiple religions throughout the history of the world have used October 31st, November 1st as a celebration. It doesn't mean that when you celebrate Halloween, going outside trick-or-treating, eating Reese's Pieces, it doesn't mean that you're worshiping the devil if you dress up like Rick and Morty or something, or Mario Bros. No, many humans throughout the world know that this is a special day, October 31st and November 1st, and they celebrate it depending on the religion that they believe in. And now it is something that no longer has a tie to, I retract. And basically Halloween now is more of a capitalistic holiday where people make millions of dollars, if not billions. For people to just have fun and get drunk.
from? Is it made up? They too believe. The Wiccans believe. The actual pagan religion, the pagans believe. They'll even tell you on their own websites that I saw this quote. It said, Christians, comma, you can thank us for Christmas, Easter, and Halloween. And they know that. And actually, I read multiple articles on...
See, and that's the same thing. If we celebrate Christmas at a time that actually came from a pagan holiday, those same days, so Christmas is positive and Halloween is negative. But they're both days that were all automatically pagan holidays before. And isn't it supposedly that Christ's actual birthday wasn't December 25th? So why is it that some pagan holidays we convert to good, while other pagan holidays we convert to evil? It makes no sense to me. At the end of the day, just celebrate what you actually believe. And I believe Halloween is secular at this point.
Pagan, Wiccan, and occultic websites that are angry that Christians celebrate their holidays. They feel like that Christians are hijacking their holy days. Now, I don't know about you, but that's a strange paradox when you have Satanists that are upset because Christians are celebrating their holy day. Something's not right with that statement. And as we walk through the timeline here, we're going to find out whether Christians can hijack, whether we should redeem, and whether it can be redeemed or not. What does the Bible say? So first of all, in the history timeline, from the Celts, they celebrated this festival called Samhain, and then along came the Romans. And the Romans took over the Celts. After conquering the Irish and the Celts in the first century, Samhain began to get mixed with two other Roman feasts for the dead, because the Romans had their own feast for the dead. Those were called Pomona Day and Feralia. So Pomona Day and Feralia, two feasts that were integrated into Samhain. How many know that every time a country takes over another country, there's a mixture of traditions? Okay? What is the best expression of that here in the United States? Everything we do. The United States is a melting pot, is it not? So look at all the traditions from Ireland that have come in, from Scotland, from even Great Britain, from Mexico. Okay, there is all kinds of traditions that are melt in a culture that gets mixed with another culture, and that's exactly what happened when the Romans took over the Celts in the first century. Is that the Samhain festival? The Romans now are living amongst the Celts. The Celts are living amongst the Romans, and there was a mixture of, hey, that's kind of cool in your holiday. Let's mix that in here, and that's pretty neat. You guys do that. Let's do this, and then those holidays began to merge. So I'm going to show you some of the things and how they merged on the timeline. For instance, Feralia was held on February 21st and was the day to honor the dead. But like other Roman holidays, it was completely filled with drunkenness, orgies, fornication, all kinds of crazy stuff, very similar to the Feast of Saturnalia.
I mean, if you're being honest and true and honest to yourself, were you saying that, the Roman holiday was actually, people would just get drunk and there'll be orgies and, XYZ. That is literally what happens in holidays now. that is literally what happens in holiday now. But that still means we can celebrate 4th of July. Just because your uncle gets super hammered because he's a veteran on 4th of July, and you don't. You play video games and maybe eat pizza and burgers and hot dogs and wear an American flag. That doesn't mean that you're also participating in drunkenness. So just because in a Roman holiday, most people will get intoxicated and do promiscuous things during a holiday because they have free time, that doesn't mean that the holiday itself is something that influences that. It's something that is meant to be celebrated by being drunk. Does that make sense? It's like even in Christmas, people get drunk. Even in Christmas, people have sex. Right? That's not the meaning of the holiday, but that's just a human tendency to do when you have more free time because you're on vacation or because you don't have work.
Of which was a 12-day feast, of which we get the 12 days of Christmas from. Yes, I'm sorry if you haven't watched Truth or Tradition. Now would probably be a good time to do that before you get too upset with me. But yes, that's where these holidays come from. They come all the way back into the 2,000 plus years ago.
And that's what I'm talking about. If you're going to say that Christmas is okay to celebrate, even though it has pagan influences and it's even the 12 days of Christmas is a pagan thing, then why are you being negative when it comes to Halloween? If you're going to celebrate one, you can celebrate the other.
Pomona Day, on the other hand, was November 1st. This was a day to honor the goddess Pomona, who's the goddess of trees, fertility, and fruits. And you know what her sacred symbol was? None other than the apple. Okay, we'll come back to that a little bit later, and you'll see that there's a connection all the way back to the garden of why her significant, or her symbol was the apple. So there was a day in Roman times on November 1st called Pomona Day. That's where they honored the goddess Pomona, and her major symbol was the apple.
So I'm pretty sure he's going to relate that to Adam and Eve because of the apple.
And of course,
so original sin, so biting, to being tempted by the devil.
She was the goddess of fruit trees. Next comes along the Catholic Church. Just a few hundred short years later, we've got this. Having multiple days for remembering the dead saints and martyrs, the Catholic Church agreed that there should be one day for all of the saints. And so what was happening in Catholicism, very, very early Catholicism in the 3rd and 4th century, is that a martyr, or what they can be considered a saint, and you were automatically a saint if you were martyred, and that's how they began. So when you became a saint in the Roman Catholic Church, they believed in remembering your death and honoring you in your death. And that's fine and dandy, but what happened was multiple people began to be saints, so many that they would have dates booked up every month. Throughout the month, they were remembering the dead every day. So there was a logic that went in that said, hey, listen, there's too many dead saints to all remember individually. Let's package them all together. A political, logical move was made, and let's put them all into one day, and we'll call it All Saints' Day. So with the backing of the Roman government, okay, because at that time the church and the government were working hand in hand, it was decided to whitewash the Roman Day of the Dead and turn it into the day of remembering and praying to the dead saints. So remember, much of what we get in history today comes from a political process, a compromising of church and state for the betterment of the people. So, in quotes there. Because what happened is that they thought, okay, there's already a day of remembering the dead in Rome. So in the church side of Rome, the church side of Rome and the state side of Rome, the church side of the Rome, who's really connected, arm and body, with the state side of Rome, or the government side, said, well, if we're going to do that, let's just pick a day that will be easier for everybody, and let's take over the Roman Day of the Dead, because we don't really agree with that whole Roman Day of the Dead anyway. But if we use their day, then people will remember the saints. And so that was the logic behind that. And really, ultimately, it kind of made sense. If you didn't have a biblical background and you didn't know what the front of the book said, then this was a good move. And so they made this move, and that day ended up being, when you get to Ephraim Cyrus, who died in 373, he mentions that there's a feast dedicated to the saints in his writings. So we know historically that as early as in the 370s that there definitely was one day set aside to remember the saints. Then comes along John Chrysostom, who died in 407. Now this guy, if you do any homework on him, he's major saint in Catholicism. Not only in Catholicism, but he's one of the saints that has crossed over into Protestantism and became a church father, or someone that is held in tremendous high esteem in Protestantism. Even Christianity Today, I believe, wrote an article about and esteemed him greatly as a church leader. He was called the Golden Mouth because he was so articulate. He captivated thousands of people with his messages and his sermons, and he was only in his 20s when he went into full-time ministry. He was
You gotta check out that saint. That sounds like a very wonderful person I've never heard about.
very gifted, came from a wealthy family. The problem with Mr. Chrysostom is that he lacked a true biblical understanding of the Hebraic background of the faith. And so it would not surprise you that he was incredibly anti-Semitic. And so when he comes along, what he does is he puts a stamp on this All Saints Day, and he says that we're going to fix it to the first Sunday after Pentecost. Then from him, we're actually going to make this even more solid. The name was changed because the name originally was Feralia. Even though they had it for All Saints Day, there was no All Saints Day name. It was a day for all the saints, but they still used the name Feralia. So they changed the name from Feralia to All Saints Day, and the date was changed to kill two birds with one stone. They changed it to May 13th. May 13th, 609 AD, Pope Boniface IV dedicated the Pantheon in Rome in commemoration of all Christian martyrs. And that, even in his historical Catholic records, is the day that All Saints' Day was born. Now, what their historians will tell you in Catholicism is that All Saints' Day was born right here in 609 AD, had nothing to do with paganism, and it had to do with the christening, if you will, of the Pantheon to be a church and to remember all of the martyrs in All Saints' Day.